Now, I have cautioned that there is a really significant force that is coming for free speech. It is big tech. Now, if you're not somebody who's on Facebook, I can understand why you don't care. If you're not somebody who's on Twitter, I get it why you don't care. If the way you watch this program is through Foxtel or through Win and you don't watch the YouTube videos, then I get it. But there are millions of people who have found a way around legacy media, a way around being told what to think. And the best part of 20 years ago now, it was the internet. It was the Wild West. Now, it was confronting for everyone who had dominance and control over the voice and the debates, and you have seen disruption in that establishment media industry, which still to this day is being fought over. There's literally laws being passed in the Parliament this week to force these tech companies to actually help pay for the content that they are riding on top of. But one of the most wonderful things to see in the past 20 years has been people who decided to set up their own shop, to set up their own small business, a small business where they sought to perform, to take the piss, to do editorials, to make their own little television shows. Some people were great at it, most people aren't. But there have been these little followings that come up on blogs, podcasts, Facebook pages, and YouTube. Now, every single thing that is said on every single side I am not about to come to the full defence of. But big tech has now done what big companies always do, which is to see the Wild West, to divide it up, and then slowly but surely buy everyone else's farm until you own the entire valley. And that's where we are now. Now, yes, there are other ways to look for things on the internet other than Google, but do you even know what they are? There are other ways to communicate with your family and friends on the internet, but are you on anything other than Facebook? You can watch videos of your favourite American talk show hosts, but are you on something like Rumble? Probably not. Because the Wild West has been tamed, it's been paved, it's been built over, and it is owned by the tech giants. And the tech giants are the spoilt kids of many of those that are in establishment media. The people who have always been of the left. But these people operate in an even more ruthless fashion than those who are in legacy media, in establishment media. And they all thought that they must do their bit to correct the great mistake of Western history, the election of Donald Trump. Now, the establishment media concluded, in part because they were having endless open discussions on social media, about what led to the mistake of Donald Trump, an outsider, a Vulgarian, being able to disrupt the system. Ironically, just like the social media companies were able to do to other established industries. Apparently, politics is the one thing you are not allowed to disrupt. So many people concluded that some of the things that led to the Trump presidency were, in part, but not totally, have a look at this, that they gave Trump too much airtime. They ran too many of his speeches, and that meant too many people could see what he was saying, and too many people, in their view, fell for his message. They reported on the scandal that was the former Secretary of State who had a private email server and potentially was moving top secret information from government accounts with all of their security to one in her basement that clearly didn't have the same security. But by talking about this scandal, somehow it increased the negative numbers for Hillary Clinton, which in part pushed people to the bad orange man. And the third was that the MAGA nation was able to use social media better than the establishment. They were able to set up independent news, independent podcasts, provocative and entertaining things like YouTube videos, and this in part became part of the information mix that led to the best part of 60-something million people voting for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton not becoming the rightful heir to the throne. So in the past 4 years, anyone who hated the Orange Man did everything they could to fire any and everything they could as a silver bullet to stop the mistake from happening again. There's this term about being able to go back in time to kill baby Hitler, that if you killed baby Hitler, do you stop all of the terrible things that Hitler did? Well, obviously the case. But their view was to make sure that not only were they going to kill the horrible Orange Man, but they would also be able to salt the earth so one could not replace him. And this is how they did it. They decided to stop covering the president, to literally cut him off mid-speech, or pretend his speeches weren't happening, or to pretend that every achievement was non-existent and every scandal was absolutely to the front of the queue. And to avoid the alternative to Donald Trump having any sort of negative baggage coming with him, they literally did not talk about any scandals. Remember when Twitter banned any conversation and any serious reporting about Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden? Well, today, the Department of Justice is formally investigating, guess who? Hunter Biden. But for many people who had been reading the establishment media, they're kind of shocked. They think this is some sort of revenge move coming from Donald Trump. This has been something that has been being investigated for months. But it wasn't talked about during the election because it might affect the consequences of the election. And put that list up again, because the third is that the social media companies decided to limit Trump and limit his supporters. Anything he said came with a warning on it that was tougher than anything that came out of Chinese propagandists. Anyone who was a popular figure, who was like a punk-esque figure of the conservative movement, well, they were banned, deplatformed, depersoned, never to be heard from again. Think about this. If you were banning authors or columnists, that's what was happening on Twitter. Now, I don't defend every one of their words. I can't. But the principle of people being able to, in a country where it is written in their founding document, freedom of speech, means freedom of speech. But this private company has decided which speech is truly free and which speech must be shut up. Every rumour about Donald Trump, every scandal about Republicans, to the top of the list. Every potential truth or accusation from a real human being about Biden, gone. And I'll talk about this tonight because the Australian media is learning this lesson. That rather than going to the whole messy business of covering both sides, you just don't cover one side. You pretend that it's only nutters who are talking about one half of the coin. And in America right now, there is rage from Republicans, yes, loyal to Donald Trump, but still at least asking the questions about the people who now own all the farms in the valley. This was Ted Cruz.
Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
We need to earn trust more. We realize that more accountability is needed to show our intentions and to show the outcomes.
Thank you,
so
Senator.
I hear the concerns and acknowledge them, but we want to fix it with more transparency.
So the big bearded bloke runs Twitter, and he basically fobbed off the questions about, well, hang on, how many Republicans have you censored? How many Conservatives have you censored versus how many lefties or wild lefties have you censored? Of course, we all know it is disproportionately those who lead to the mistake of Trump who were censored, as opposed to those who peddled many of the craziest lies of the past 4 years. And as you know, the President of the United States is disputing the election in which he seems to have lost. I say seems to have lost because that is all of the evidence that would suggest he has lost this election. All of the likelihood is that the Electoral College, after the certifications, will confirm that Joe Biden is the next President of the United States. But the President of the United States currently is contesting the election. That is a fact. Whether he ultimately fails in doing that, we'll see. He's failed in most of his attempts to this point. There's a couple more shies at the stumps. And that's not me giving you false hope. That's just doing my job, telling you what happened today. But we learnt this morning that YouTube is now going to not put a warning on videos that help explain Donald Trump's version of what happened at this election. They are now removing them. Totally gone. Banned. They're going to put this in the same bin as Holocaust denial, as climate change denial, as flat eartherism. Now, this matters because who is making this decision? Who is advising the tech companies on their decisions? Well, it won't surprise you, they don't have much feedback from conservatives about who gets to play and who doesn't get to play, who can be heard and who is silenced forever. And this really matters. Because yes, while there are alternatives to Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, Google and all the other big ones, these are going to become electronic ghettos where all the people who are banned from the big platforms or the big farms are sent to the fringes of town. And then no matter what they say on the fringes of town, on Rumble, Parler or anything else, they're just the crazies. They're the crazies at the bottom of the creek. They're the hillbillies. Ignore them. And that's why it matters. Because the Australian media is learning the lesson of what just happened in the United States. I don't think it will ever be as brazen as what just happened in the United States. And for some people, they think that the horror of Trump is a reason to reset the system like this. But when freedom of speech is in the Constitution, that's not a great move.